Timbaland is really well known for working like an owl. He's a nocturnal creature, and he likes to work it from midnight till 7 in the morning. So when I was in Miami recording Loose, I was getting used to these long, late hours. And Tim and I would have this weird schedule of kind of getting to the studio and lounging around and listening to music, and then getting tired and then waking up again. And in the midst of this all, there was this huge screen in the studio one day, and on it was the film The Wall by Pink Floyd, which is very trippy and very abstract. And imagine sort of beats playing and watching The Wall while you're kind of like in there jamming. And, it was about 3 a.m., 4 a.m., and I remember I had this sort of hooded sweatshirt around me because I was getting really tired. I felt really cozy. And Tim said, "Oh, you might as well go home. You're not going to write anything good at this time. I know you. You get tired at this time." And that was like a challenge. It's like sort of sparring with Tim and I, challenging each other. And I was like, well, give me the mic. Let's see, right? And we used to write in the mix room, like right up against the board. Like I'd have a mic out, and we'd have everything going on the speakers. That's how we would write, really jamming. And then all of a sudden, we were using all these effects on my voice, and I started singing, "In the day, in the night, say here." And then he was on his keys, and Nate was on his keys, and it was just like the ghost came in the room and took over, So that became Say It Right, and we had fun recording it. The process was cool, because actually Demo, the mixer and engineer, and my husband, he actually, my now husband, put all these microphones around me, like almost like 4 microphones to get the vocal sound that we got. All Good Things Come to an End is another track off Loose, and it's one of my favorite moments on Loose, the song and the video. I think that was sort of the song that kind of broke open the album sort of to the whole world and became really universal and very pop in that moment. And the writing process was cool. Tim, was listening to lots of Coldplay in the studio at the time, and the MTV Awards was in Miami that year, and I was backstage at the MTV Awards, I believe. I think Tim and I went together that year, and I ran into Chris Martin from Coldplay, who I'd known from a long time ago, festivals, UK, touring, everything like that, and I bumped into him, and I told him I was working with Timbaland, and Chris's eyes lit up like, "Timbaland, wow, I'd love to meet him." And I said, "Well, how long are you in town? Come by the studio." So he came by the next night, and Tim was equally excited to meet him. And the two of them were almost starstruck, of each other in the studio because they'd never met. And there was kind of like, no one was making any music. And I kind of like, turn your keyboards on, put on your guitar, let's do this. They started jamming. And we started... I don't know, it was a great jam. It was another awesome jam of a lifetime. And Chris, how did he come up with the idea for the hook? I think he was like, he ended a jam and he's like, "Oh, well, all good tunes come to an end," or "all good jams come to an end." He went, "All good jams come to an end." And I was like, "Oh, that's a great hook." What we thought was the end of a jam became the beginning of a song. And so he wrote this, "All good jams come to an end," and then we're like, "That's a great idea." And then all good things come to an end, And then Flames to Dust, Lovers to Friends, I started, singing with him. And then I had the horrible, difficult task of writing verses the next day, once the jam was over. So there were some musicians jamming, playing guitars on another vibe the next day, and I just sat there and wrote verses that I thought would complement the chorus. And yeah, it's a fun tune. In God's Hands is a song that I wrote with Rick Knowles, who's an amazing writer who lives in Los Angeles, and him and I have a great connection. He's really disciplined as a writer, and he definitely brings out the best in me. And sometimes we write over beats and things, but that day I said, just play your guitar and I'll sing. And God's Hands came out of nowhere, which sometimes the best songs just kind of present themselves and you don't have to overthink it. And God's Hands is about, when you lose a love, when you lose a great love or a relationship is over and you don't know where it went. It just kind of slipped through your hands. And And I like that imagery, that it's back in God's hands. It's back where it started, you know? And I don't usually write that, I don't know how to explain it, like that songs with that kind of imagery, like sort of like that. I guess it's really like a, I think it's an interesting song. And I always thought it sounded like a country tune. You know, I thought it sounded like the lyricism and the imagery kind of reminded me of this sort of storybook kind of country tune. And that's why I invited Keith Urban to do a special version of In God's Hands, which does appear on the deluxe version of Best of Nelly Furtado for a lot of people that haven't heard it. And Keith Urban loved the song right away when he heard it. And he's a great artist. He's like sort of like a country pop artist. And great voice, great tunes. And I thought he sounded great on it. So my country wishes and dreams came true. Broken Strings was like this great gift for me, you know, like a great opportunity. James Morrison and I, we're on the same label, Polydor in the UK, and we had met at the Brit Awards the year that I went to, and I won an award at the Brit Awards. He was sitting at my table, and we met, and he was so sweet. He came off as just such a sweet young guy with so much talent. I think his voice, he sort of sounds like a young Rod Stewart, like just so much, just this grainy, gritty, like soulful and strong voice. And he sent me the song, and I was flattered that he wanted me on it. I thought, wow, this is cool new territory for me, which is, I always like, you know, when something's new and different for me. So that's why I chose to do it. And he flew to Toronto, and we had a great time in the studio. The demo he sent me was totally different than the way the song sounded when he got to Toronto, and he was actually kind of embarrassed. He was like, oh my gosh, they sent you the wrong version of the song, oh my God. But I ended up loving the new version just as much and sang the vocals, and it ended up being this beautifully produced, epic track, just like so big sounding and different than what was on the radio, and almost like retro in a way, in a really cool way. And we've had an opportunity to sing it live at his show at Wembley Arena in London recently, and it was like a really surreal experience. It had this like it's a magical tune, and he sings with a lot of passion.